Hey everyone, my name is Brittany Gorlick. I am the Membership Engagement Chair for the Mid-America Print Council.
And I'm Jacob Taylor Gibson. I'm also on the board for MAPC.
Taylor's going to talk to us a little bit about the format of the stream, and then I'll talk a little bit about why we're here, and then we'll just get into it.
Yeah, so we'll have presentations by both Jordan and Shaun, and then Adam. And while they're presenting, you are welcome to type questions into the chat. We just ask that you keep your mic muted and save any verbal questions till the end. But while the presentations are going, you can type your questions out as they come to you and send them in the chat, and then we'll pull from those when we do the Q&A section. But just remember to keep your mics muted.
And we are so excited to introduce you today to Jordan, Shaun, and Adam. This PrintStream offers a behind-the-scenes look at the systems, care, and expertise that sustain our contemporary printmaking environments, from daily workflows and press stewardship to navigating common print shop challenges. Together, they will highlight the knowledge and approaches that support thriving studio spaces.
Yeah, and to start, we have the Conrad brothers, Jordan and Shaun. Conrad are the two brothers behind the Conrad Machine Press Company, North America's oldest manufacturer of fine art printmaking presses. With over 50 years of collective hands-on experience in press building, they grew up immersed in the world of print, learning the craftsmanship behind high-quality etching, lithography, and relief presses at a young age. Their passion for printmaking and commitment to providing studios and artists with the best possible equipment has helped shape the company's reputation for performance and durability. Please welcome Jordan and Shaun.
Hi everyone, I'm Jordan, and my brother Shaun is here also. And we just kind of went over. We do a lot of service calls. Obviously, we've been building presses for a long time, and just put together kind of what we see most commonly out in the studio or out in studios, out in the field. Uh, Things that aren't taken care of very well, things that sometimes are, and just wanted to give everyone a basic kind of how-to best practices for maintaining your equipment, so that way it can last longer, gives you better results, and just like Brittany said, be good stewards of the equipment that the schools have. That's tends to be the best way to get more of it, and then also just helps the program and makes everyone's time printing more enjoyable. So, Shaun, you want to share your the presentation?
Yeah, so we'll kind of go over all the main things that we think about. Some of the stuff we'll go over is pretty common sense stuff. Some of it is stuff that often gets overlooked in studio settings. A lot of people uh, tend to they get very focused, obviously, on the printing aspect of it, and take for granted that the press also is something that needs to be maintained. We make presses and anything and everything that goes with presses, and we do all the servicing and everything that goes with that. So we have quite a bit of experience in all areas of the printmaking. But there we go. We kind of put together a PowerPoint of all the main things that I think everybody should kind of look at with their presses and running a studio in general. So we'll just kind of get into it. The main rule of thumb that when looking at any kind of press or any kind of machinery is that if it moves, chances are it probably needs to be cleaned and or lubricated. Any moving part is going to have some kind of friction, and any dirt buildup or anything on that is just going to make the friction even worse. So making sure that things are actually cleaned regularly and lubricated is goes a long way. It's like 90% of just making sure that your press works right is just keeping it clean and keeping it lubed up. So these are kind of the main things that we see that either go wrong or that people overlook or that they need to maintain. We'll look at each one of these things in a little bit of detail and kind of some tips on how to deal with them. So the first off, what's that?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So yeah, the first thing that you want to do is your pressure screws. Those are basically the screws that you turn up and down that raise and lower your roll. Those should realistically be cleaned maybe once a year, a lot of this also, almost everything we're going to talk about depends on use. So like if you guys have a program that is slammed, you got 30 plus students per semester, and and you only have a couple presses, so they're getting more use than others. You might need to do some of this more frequently. So just keep that in mind with everything we're talking about. But I'd say at least once a year, maybe twice a year, you should be cleaning and re-greasing your pressure screws, just because just turning those up and down every time you're pulling prints, that's just wear on the screws, and the you're trying to reduce that friction, because over long periods of time that just you have metal on metal sitting there grinding against each other in essence. So that way you just want some form of lubrication on there. And then the reason you want to also clean them is that if you just keep applying more and more grease over, we're talking years, some presses are 60, 70 years old, the grease can tend to harden, and then the screws will be extremely difficult to raise and lower. So the only way really around that is you need to remove the old grease. So basically, the easiest way to do that is on any of our presses, like whether it's a Conrad or a French tool or a brand, you basically just can turn the pressure screw counterclockwise completely out of the machine, and then just take some mineral spirits or a light solvent like that, to remove all of the built up, caked up grease. And then that is that's how you would clean it. And then you would just apply new grease. And so for presses that are like this, where you can remove the pressure screw easily, completely like that, you can also get on the inside of the top block, which is what the pressure screw goes in. Obviously, there's grease in there also. So if you just remove it from the pressure screw, there's still grease in there. And you want to clean both those surfaces with like some mineral spirits or something similar. Then let it dry, reapply grease. We'll get into what kind of grease and stuff to use, but it can be as simple as just removing them, then wiping new grease on with an acid brush. Both the images here, they have a Zerk fitting, what's called a Zerk fitting, and you can pump grease in there with a grease gun. So that is something you can do also. That still needs to be cleaned over time though, because you can't just keep pumping more and more grease in there. And then other styles like Griffin presses, and then tackage presses that are based similarly to those. It's not quite as simple to remove the pressure screws, because they can either be hard welded on there, so you can't actually separate it from the top cap. And if you have a press like that it either can't be removed or needs some specialized tools, the easiest thing to do is just to lower the pressure screw all the way down, so to where your upper roll is basically touching your bed, and then clean all of the exposed threads with like a bristle brush or something like that, and then mineral spirits again. Then raise it all the way as high as it can go, and then clean the exposed threads. Then you'll repeat that 3 or 4 times until you can get as much off as you can, and then you would apply the fresh grease on there. So I guess I went over the next slide. So yeah, that's basically what you do. You clean the old grease off with mineral spirits. You need to use some kind of solvent, unfortunately, just because built up, caked up grease, there's really no other way to dissolve the stuff. And then you can polish the threads, and then the pressure screws themselves, or if the gauges got slightly, have been slightly corroded over time. The best thing to do with any type of surface corrosion that isn't too deep is just Scotch-Brite Brillo pads, the green ones that you have in like your kitchen stuff. Those are like indispensable. Keep those on hand in the studio. This is a set I just recently did at our institute. It's an old set of brand gauges on a smaller tabletop or smaller floor model and one of their larger floor models. So basically, the whole process, I removed them out. There's a lot of caked up grease on there. You can use a toothbrush, or like I said, like a wire brush or something. And then this is all just done by hand. I don't have that stuff with me when I'm out a lot of the time. So this is just done with hand tools and some hand sanding stuff. And then for when you apply new grease, you'll just want to use what's called bearing grease. A lot of people ask me what kind of grease to use. Anything that's rated for what's called bearing grease is what you're going to want to use. So we have like basic printmaking grease on the Conrad store. It's just Lucas Oil product. But you can find that a lot of times at like AutoZone, any of those major auto parts stores. You can find this kind of stuff. And then if you have one that you can just wipe it on, it's good to have kind of both, to have a grease gun and a tub, because sometimes you want to apply it differently. So anyway, just like I said, normal bearing, anything that's rated for bearings, you're good to go. And realistically, one of these tubs will last you 20 years. So I mean, like, yeah, and so yeah, that's your basic pressure screws. Those are the main thing. Probably the thing that's going to need the most maintenance on every press is just those. Just and really just comes down to cleaning them and re-greasing them every 6 to 12 months. So,
and what's common is you'll kind of know if there's a lot of buildup in the pressure screw, in that if they're really hard to turn. So we've gotten numerous calls over the years of people, oh, there's something wrong with the press. I can't even raise the roll, and it just gets stuck. And well, what's happening is all the hardened grease is getting packed inside the top cap over the years, and it's all dirty and caked in there, and it's not allowing that pressure screw to freely move up and down anymore. So that whole assembly kind of needs to be taken apart and cleaned and put back together. And then after you do that, it's back to new and totally smooth again. So if it is tight and hard to move your pressure screw or move the roll up and down, that's the first thing to look at. So next we'll go into bed plates. So bed plates, the main things to really check on them is, one, to check whether they're flat, and to check what kind of other wear you have on them. Obviously, people, students or whoever, running pennies or nails or whatever through the press, leaving imprints in the bed. Check on those things and see what they are. But the most common things on a bed is really just to check to see if it's flat, and if there's any huge gouges or anything in it. And then based on how flat it is, can determine whether it needs to be flipped, or if it has a warp plate, if that needs to be changed, and then just the cleaning process of cleaning a bed. Now, there's obviously beds made out of all different materials. On larger floor model presses, the most common ones are either metal beds or wood beds, and there's different things to check on both of those. On a metal bed, metal technically it doesn't have much movement in the actual material as far as environmental conditions go. So like humidity and air pressure and that kind of stuff, it's not really going to it's not going to reshape the metal that much. It doesn't expand and contract with that kind of stuff. So it's a fairly stable thing. And since the metal is such a hard material, it doesn't really crush or get flattened out, so to speak, as much under big pressure. But what a metal bed can do is that it can warp over time. If printing in the same exact spot and not really properly taking care of it, the bed can, we call it warping. It kind of ends up being a bit of a curl in the bed, and that can be taken out if maintained properly. Also, steel beds can rust. They can develop rust, whereas an aluminum bed or wood bed won't. Now, wood beds, they do have a tendency to, since it's wood, it will react to the environment. So in coastal environments, seeing things that are really, places that are really humid, people who have studios maybe in their garage or in an unclimate controlled environment can see the wood, or the wood can expand. And that's why a lot of presses with wood beds, the wood bed is a little bit loose in the frame almost. You can kind of move it back and forth almost to give it room to expand in case the wood actually swells up with the humidity. And we've had some wood beds, people call this, that it expanded too much and now it's getting stuck in the frame, so it needs to be milled down a little bit. And the wood also, obviously, wood is this little bit softer material than steel is. So if printed in the same spot over and over and over again, the wood itself can kind of squish down almost, creating kind of a low spot in the bed. The good thing about wood is that obviously, unlike metal, it doesn't rust. But if a lot of wood beds will have steel runners on the bottom of them, or will have steel pins going through them to keep them together, and obviously any of that kind of stuff would rust. Unlike a metal bed, most wood beds, typically wood beds can't really be flipped, but some can. So we'll kind of go into what to look at on the beds now. So first thing that you want to check on your bed is whether it's flat. You can do this with a straight edge. If you a precision straight edge is really the best thing to use. If you don't have a precision straight edge, you can use like a long bubble level that will often have like a milled straight edge on it. That's also really easy to use. If you have a higher quality paper paper tearing bar, that would work as well. Anyway, you want to get a straight edge and put it across the bed. And as you can see, this is actually a wood bed. You can see the big light in the middle of it. That's because there's a low spot in the bed. So the way you measure that is you would put your straight edge on it, and then in where it's low, you can get a set of feeler gauges. And those are it's a set of metal shims that are different thicknesses. You can wedge those in between here to see how big of a gap you have, and that'll tell you how flat your bed is. This particular bed was out, I think it was about 85 thousandths of an inch. So that's over a 16th of an inch of a low spot in it. Typically on a new steel bed, we like to keep our tolerances are under 10 thousandths of an inch. We want to keep them preferably within 5 thousandths of an inch. To put it in perspective for the non-machinists out there, a human hair is about 3 thousandths of an inch. So anyway, the flatter the bed, the better consistent pressure you're going to get on it. So you measure the bed, then what do you do if the bed is low or has warped or something? On steel beds or aluminum beds, most of them you can flip them. In order to do that, you would take the bed stops off of it and pull the bed out of the press, and then set it on the ground, turn it over, put it back in the press, and put the bed stops back on it. Depending on the size of your press, that can be a bigger job than not. You might need a couple of people, and you might need some type of cherry picker or engine hoist or something like that to lift the bed up. Now on older Charles Brand presses, those steel beds you can't flip because the bottom of the bed differs from the top of the bed. So those have what's called a warp plate. If you can't flip a brand bed, then you can replace the warp plate. We'll go over that in a minute. And then in wood beds, again, typically they kind of can't be flipped, basically because the bottom of the bed is different than the top of the bed. Now, you'll go over that? All right.
So yeah, and then just basics, bed cleaning, again, just the way to you just want to take care of the bed no matter what material it's made out of. This is a particularly neglected bed that we serviced a while ago at school, that it probably hadn't been serviced or even really touched in probably realistically multiple decades. And there's no real reason, I always tell people, for anything to get to this condition. But even if it is, it's something obviously that can be, fixed with some elbow grease, and it's not that difficult. So basically, if you have a bed that looks similar to this, or it looks in between, obviously a lot of the stuff that's on here is ink. So you need some kind of again, solvent to remove that stuff, because sanding it is just going to gum up any type of sandpaper or anything like that. So you'll just want to basically clean the top of it as best you can with the solvent, then get an orbital sander, and then you can sand it down just like an electric orbital sander. Make sure you move consistently across the bed. Don't just sit in one spot, obviously, for too long, because you don't want to create any type of flat spots or dead spots or anything like that. So just go evenly over it. If you find a lot of times when you see a bed that's like this, that is this neglected, you'll start finding images in it. I found just recently I was resurfacing a bed, and you couldn't really see it when I started, but then there was a big, probably 3-inch nail that was in the top of the bed. Every little groove on the nail was perfectly imprinted in the bed, and so yes, you'll discover things like that. So if you do, you want to take like a little like a you can take a small file or something and just file down the edges, because those will create kind of like a crater effect when you're running stuff through the press. So you want to get the outside of that as flat as you can. And then, yeah, again, Scotch-Brite pads, just an orbital sander. And then if you can put some WD-40 on the Scotch-Brite pads if you're sanding, just to kind of keep the dust down, and it helps a little bit. I usually don't, just because I don't know, it just makes it more messy. But if you're in an area, if you're doing a lot of sanding and you don't want to create any dust or whatever, that's a good way to do that.
You want to go? Sure. So yeah, to flip the beds. So this is an old brand bed. Um, the other metal beds would be kind of similar. You would just take the bed stops off of one side of it, and then you can roll the bed out the other side. Then just set it on the ground, flip it over, put it back in, and then reinstall the bed stops. On the brand press, this one has the warp plate on the bottom of it. So the warp plate's held in by these little clips right here. And what you want to do is take the bed stops off of one side of it, roll the whole bed out of the press, and then set it on the ground. And then you can take all these clips off of it, and then the warp plate will slide out from underneath the bed. And then you can put a new warp plate in there and then reinstall the clips, put the bed back in, and reinstall the bed stops on the one side. The warp plate works pretty well. It kind of absorbs a lot of the curling of the steel bed that the main bed would have on it. But it's a wear item, so you're going to have to replace it. Or I believe the original recommendations were to replace it every 6 months or every year. But anyway, most people never do, and they end up being a problem. And the warp plate ends up curling so much that as the bed goes through the press, the bed itself will it will ride the warp plate and actually kind of create lumps in it almost. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. That needs to be, replaced fairly frequently, once every couple of years, or just keep an eye on it. It's pretty easy to do, but it's something that often goes unnoticed. So then the next thing we'll get into is the kind of maintaining and cleaning your rolls on the press. First thing, kind of like the bed, is just to clean all the dirt, grime, and printmaking goo off of the rolls with some mineral spirits, and then look for rust or anything like that. Also check if your roll is plated, either nickel plated or chrome plated. Look to see how the plating is. If the plating is chipped or anything like that, take note of it. We'll deal with that. And then just check to see if there's any scratches, dents, or any kind of wear. The press that Jordan was talking about with the nail that went through the press, that one had a perfect nail imprint in the bed about 3 inches long, and a corresponding nail imprint on the bottom of the roll that was significantly deep. So anyway, to keep an eye on that, because a lot of things like that will get hidden underneath all kinds of dirt and grime that you don't necessarily notice. So we'll go over kind of how to look at both rolls. Rolls that don't have any plating on them. First things first, clean them with some mineral spirits and see what you're working with, and then you can remove any rust with either Scotch-Brite pads or with some light sandpaper. If the rust is really deep, what is a good thing to do is to get some sandpaper, get like a strip of sandpaper that's maybe like 2 inches wide by about 10 or 15 inches long, and you can actually shoe shine the roll with the sandpaper and clean it up that way. One thing to do if you are sanding the roll either with Scotch-Brite or with sandpaper, that you want to go with the turning marks on the roll. You don't want to go across the roll like this. You want to go with the marks for a couple reasons, but that's going to help you get any rust that's developed like in the grooves of the roll, it's going to help get in there and clean that out. So anyway, we'll take a couple, show you a couple of pictures of what that looks like in a second. But after you get all the rust removed and stuff, then you can just add some rust preventative stuff to it, either wax or some rust block agent. You can find it on the press store. We have some on there, but either or works really well for keeping the rust at bay. This is a picture of the same press. So as you can see, this thing was crazy neglected, and 10 years or whatever plus of zero maintenance whatsoever. It's like, unfortunately, too many presses look like this, and they really shouldn't if they're just properly maintained. But anyway, here's the before we did anything, and then as you can see, cleaning all the rust off with some Scotch-Brite and some sandpaper, and then cleaning the rust completely up. And you can see right here, we have discovered a little ding from somebody running something through the press. But anyway, so that's what it looks like to clean a non-plated roll. Now, plated rolls, they're good. They're definitely good, and they have pros and cons. You can clean them with mineral spirits the same as you'd clean a non-plated roll. Then you can polish the plating with just some chrome polish. Any generic chrome polish will work. We have some on the store that you can get, but just you can clean it with just a rag, put some chrome polish on a rag, and polish it out like that. If the nickel plating on your roll is chipping off or has little chip marks on it, a couple of things to keep in mind: that you don't want to continually like pick at it and chip, because it's just going to make the problem worse, because either the plating is wearing off or it's cracking and then flaking off. And if you keep picking at it, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. What you kind of want to do is take a Scotch-Brite pad and kind of level off some of that plating to where it's actually chipping, and then kind of leave the rest of it. And remove the really bad stuff. So here's a couple pictures of what I'm talking about. So one, this is all kind of grime built up on the lower, and that stuff can all just be cleaned off with mineral spirits, no problem. But what you can see here is all this plating is just flaking off the side of it. And what you want, or what you don't want, is these to come off as little metal shards getting in your plates, in your paper, in your felts, any of that kind of stuff. So you definitely want to take care of this stuff. But these kind of flaking off things, this is what I was talking about with like chipping. If you went in there with your fingernail and just kind of sat there and picked at it, you could just keep chipping, almost like chipping paint. You could just keep chipping and just make this a bigger problem than it is. So you kind of want to take a Scotch-Brite pad and see how this little area has like a raised edge. If you take a Scotch-Brite pad and kind of level that off a little bit, it'll help protect it from just continually pulling off the roll. And that'll help preserve it a little bit more. And then you can just take your polish and polish this out again. So the main thing is with any rolls is that regardless of whether they're plated or not plated, or in good shape or in bad shape, is don't leave damp felts or damp paper on the roll. So don't leave damp felts draped over the rolls, especially don't leave the press under pressure on top of damp felts or damp paper, because contact with moisture is what ends up doing it. Or if you have ferric in your studio, make sure that that's capped off, and hopefully just in a different room with better ventilation. But that also can tend to eat away at things.
Bearing maintenance, that's what most of the time the rolls themselves are spinning in bearings. So those are another moving part that you'll just some are sealed. That varies from press to press, from vintage to vintage. So it's just something you'll have to look at. Some are sealed bearings that they basically don't really need any maintenance for the life of the machine. Other ones have Zerk fittings on there, like I had on the top cap on one of the previous slides. They'll have a Zerk fitting like you see here, and you'll just have a grease gun, and you will pump some grease into there. The way you do that is you don't just keep pumping in forever. Basically, how you grease a bearing is you will, as soon as you start to see grease coming out, that's when you want to stop. So you're basically forcing out all of the old grease, and then you'll know at that point that there's new grease in there. So you don't want to pump out too much. And then along those same lines, um, clean out all the old grease that you pumped out of there. A lot of times this happens more on lower rolls where they're either more difficult to get to or people just don't think about them. I've seen a bunch in the field where I've literally taken full fistfuls of old grease that have just been pushed all the way back on the bearings, and there's just sitting down there collecting felt dust and all the other stuff. So just when you put new grease in there, just make sure you clean out all of the old grease that's coming out, and then also uh, a very good practice, somewhat self or intuitive or whatever. When before you put your grease gun fitting on your Zerk, clean that, because otherwise anything dirt that's on there, you're just going to be pushing that into the bearing itself. So take a rag, wipe the entire Zerk fitting itself down, and then you can put some new grease in there, and then just make sure you clean before and after. A lot of it is self or like common sense, but if you're not used to working with machines, you don't necessarily think about it.
I got one thing here. One other thing while we're looking at this picture, one other thing to grease is the uprights right here, where this bearing housing, this bearing block rides in these uprights. These should be greased as well. Now it's it's these attract a lot because the grease is sticky, and then all the felt dust and all the dirt and stuff will immediately get attracted to that, and these can build up a lot of junk on them. So kind of the same thing, you want to wipe these down, whatever, once a year or something like that. Wipe all the old grease and all the old junk off of them, and then apply some new grease from, get a little tub of grease with the acid brush, and then just paint the grease on there. So paint the grease on here, then raise the roll all the way up, and then do the same thing on the bottom down here. So that way this bearing block can ride up and down freely without getting kind of gunked up. Because the same thing will happen with the pressure screws with these uprights. If the grease gets all hardened down here, then this whole bearing is going to have a really hard time, sliding up and down in there. Then the next thing is just bed stops. Bed stops, there's not really much to it. Main thing is just it's a safety thing to check them. Just check them periodically. I think we recommend that everybody, just do a once around at a minimum, a once around of their press at once a year, and just grease everything and stuff, but then just check everything to make sure that everything is running properly, because the bed stops can come loose over time. There's internal bed stops and there's external bed stops, and the internal bed stops are great, but if people aren't keeping an eye on them, they can come loose without them knowing it, and then you're going to have problems. Like this one shifted a little bit, it was really loose. So you gotta make sure that you keep an eye on them and that they're doing their job, that they're nice and tight. The outside bed stops, like on this old brand press or this French tool press, these ones, the same problem. They can come loose over time, but obviously an external bed stop is a little more in your face than an internal one. So chances are you're probably going to see it, or see it flopping around. It's more readily apparent. But anyway, that's a safety thing. When you're doing your once around for the year, check those to make sure that those are working properly, that they aren't all bent up, and that they are stopping the bed sufficiently enough. You want to talk about then the one of the last things is just making sure your press is level. A lot of studios, for various reasons, like to bolt their press to the ground. Now that's good for keeping the press from walking around the studio, I guess. But then your press is only as level as the ground is, and depending on the studio, sometimes you're in a 100-year-old factory building, and if your floor is like this and your press is bolted to the floor, your whole bed's not level, and your whole press isn't level. So it's important to keep it level for a variety of reasons, but mainly just to make sure that everything's operating smoothly. Like some really easy signs to tell if your press isn't level is if when the press is under pressure and the bed always rolls to one side, chances are your press probably isn't level, and that's why it's doing it. If you're getting really uneven pressure, even though you're lowering the roll the same on both sides. It might be because the press isn't level. The same thing if your bed's rolling through the press and it's kind of only hitting one side of the rollers. It might be because it could be for a number of reasons, but it might be because the press isn't level. So the best way to level it is just get a bubble level. You can get a small one in some of the areas that you can't fit a big one, but basically just put a big bubble level across both directions of the press, lengthwise and widthwise, and check to see whether it's level and if you need to shim or adjust any of the leveling feet. So here's an example of a press in an old studio. As you can see, this floor is crazy unlevel. So we had to raise one side of the press up whatever half an inch or something like that to make the press frame and the bed actually level because the floor isn't. So most presses will have leveling feet that you can do that with rather than just bolting it straight to the ground. Bolting it to the ground is good, but if your studio or you want to bolt it to the ground, you should shim it and then bolt it down so that way the press is level and then in one spot. So the next thing is just the tools. Here's a good list. Here's a good starter list of tools that any studio should have just to maintain your press. One, a grease gun, and a tube of grease that goes in it. Again, it's just generic bearing grease. Then some acid brushes to paint the grease on paint the grease on the uprights and the pressure screws and that stuff. Your basic set of Allen wrenches, basic set of box end hex wrenches, then a straight edge, or like we said before, machined bubble level will work out too. A set of feeler gauges to check the bed, then an oil can, and some screwdrivers is really all you need to do 90% of the maintenance. Well, and a good supply of rags to wipe off grease. But as far as actual tools go, if you have all of these, you'll be well on your way to being able to maintain the press yourself. A couple other things that aren't on here is just Scotch-Brite pads, some sandpaper. Generally speaking, if the rolls or any rust is really bad, we would start with like an 80 grit sandpaper and then work our way up to like 120. You don't really need it much finer than that.
I said 220. Yeah, unless it's really bad, I try to keep it over 150, just because I don't want to remove too much material. But I have used 80 grit. Only reason I say that, someone asked in the chat, and I said probably not. Don't go under 150. If it's really, really bad, you can use 80, but I try to keep it under 150. And then also a lot of people ask me too what kind of oil to use. For some things they need oil and not grease. 5W30 conventional motor oil, that's it. Nothing special. So 3-in-1 oil is better than nothing, but it's too thin, so don't use it. If you have to use it, you can, but just go get a quart of motor oil at AutoZone for $5, and it'll last you forever. So, and if you get an oil can, you just pour in the oil can, you're good to go. That's what I would recommend. So a lot of people ask that, and I forgot to put the actual kind of oil on here.
So yeah, that's kind of your basic starter set, and then yeah, just essential studio essentials and stuff. All the inks, papers, ink rollers, and that kind of stuff. We either make or carry any of that kind of stuff on our store that you guys can check out. But I know that Adam was going to talk about more filling your studio with supplies and stuff, but. I think that if you go through your press and cover all of those things, you'll be like 90% there to making sure that your press is running super smooth and that you're not going to have any problems with them. It's not a total exhaustive list because we didn't talk about drives or like some things like that on it. But yeah, I think that's the main areas that you guys should do every year. At the end of the year, beginning of the year, whatever, maybe at the end of a semester, the main areas that you should check off when looking at your press, and then keep it running for another 20 years. But I think that's pretty much all we have. But yeah, that's all we have. So we will turn it over to you guys.
I'm going to go ahead, and I'm really excited to introduce Adam Noah Berman. is currently the printmaking lab manager and adjunct professor at the University of New Mexico. Adam is a Tamarind-trained printer originally from Florida, where he received his BFA from the University of North Florida and then obtained his MFA in printmaking from East Carolina University. A chef by trade and an artist by passion, Adam enjoys making prints that focus on botanical beauty as well as the culinary uses of plants we might often overlook. His research is on the concepts of plant blindness, ethnobotany, and how ethnocentrism has played a role in the shaping of what modern society thinks of plants. Hey, Adam.
Thank you, Brittany. And thank you, Jordan and Shaun. I'm going to show some slides here too. And Jordan and Shaun made me feel amazing when you see the presses, because I definitely do maintenance them. That's me. I'm the lab manager here at the University of New Mexico. I've been for the last couple of years, and I've worked a little bit too at ECU and in Florida as well. The studio we have here at the University of New Mexico, it's 5,739 square feet. So it's a pretty big facility, and we do keep it pretty clean and nice. We do have about anywhere from like 120 to 140 students come through a semester. So when we talk about heavy use, we do have heavy use. We have 3 litho presses and 3 etching presses as well. And we have a screen print area in addition to the Jordan and Shaun were talking about press maintenance. I do my press maintenance every summer is when I do it, because we don't have summer classes. So I have some time and there's no students around. And honestly, without a doubt, the best way to see how a press is working is to print an edition. So usually every summer I gear up and try to print something on every press or and use every area. Our studio was built, we moved to this building in 1974. And if we look back at these litho presses from Talk Edge, which we are fortunate to have them just down the street on Broadway, I think that's like number 8 and number 10 that we have from 75 and 76. So they are still working fine and working well because they are well maintained. Like I take care of them every year. I do level. I put the chains. I make sure the chains are tight. I am about to ask for some more plate backers for our litho area because they have become warped. And I took a shot at graining them. And what were you guys saying? 50 thousandths of an inch or something. I can grain a stone pretty well, but graining those beds, I'm definitely not an engineer. And it's way harder than I imagined. You can see that our studios are pretty clean. I do try to facilitate. I am the lab manager, so I am technically facilities, but not in the eyes of the university. But I do facilitate a very inclusive, safe, comfortable environment for the students, because my main goal too is to facilitate so the students can do what they want to do, whatever they want to bring to fruition. I'm here to help them. So I put together, I've been really the last year or so, I've been really leaning on this student lounge. So the students have a place to work, because if there are any other instructors, professors, the more the students are here, the better work they make. So I try to make everything really accessible for them, so that they can hang out and make all the work they want. And if they feel like they're part of a community, they will really take care of the area around them. We are also fortunate enough here to have a paper closet, which was started about 20 years ago from a grant. It is not a P&L business. It is a service. So I do order everything from the purveyors that I can get, Legion Paper, and Talk Edge helps me as well. And I only sell it for 10% more than I cost. That's because I have one work study. And also sometimes I like to drop a $5 piece of paper on the floor and put a size 13 print on it. Then I have to give it to a student. So I try to cover my losses that way, because we're not a profit and loss business, but I try to keep the money the same. We do have, the reason the studio is very nice, we do have a mid-semester and an end-semester cleanup. And my instructors and faculty actually make sure that that is part of their grade. So the students help clean at midterms, and they help clean at finals. I also clean. I come in every morning and try to organize and keep everything clean and check on anything. I have spots for students to leave me things that are broken or that aren't right. because a lot of times too, they will be like what Jordan and Shaun was talking about. If something is broken, they're scared to tell me. So I try to make sure that they'll tell me if something's broken, because it's much easier for me to fix it, and instead of everybody trying to use it. One example of that is the yoke on one of the litho presses. The stop fell out. I don't know where it went. I could never find it, but nobody told me. And then somebody whacked somebody with it because it went to the other side. So somebody did get whacked in the head, and I had to send them to student health because they didn't tell me. So I went like it seriously took me like 10 minutes to fix. It wasn't a big deal. So I try to make sure, I try to foster an environment where it's, oh, if it's broken, it's fine. Just tell me that it's broken because I can fix it or get the parts or finish it too. I'm sorry that behind my mid-semester cleanup right there was a giant stack of the Scotch-Brite pads, because I do keep those around for cleaning everything as well. Also, I'm going to make a label soon where it says Barkeeper's Friend and call it Printmaker's Friend, because honestly, that cleans just about everything. The oxalic acid in Barkeeper's Friend, it can clean copper plates, it cleans litho plates, it cleans press beds, it cleans processing areas. It's probably my favorite thing. Because it has no bleach and it's not abrasive, it really is the printmaker's friend. On top, it says like for kitchens and bathrooms, and I want it to say for intaglio and litho. Do that as well. One of the other things I have found, I try to label everything and make a spot for everything. My background before I came to printmaking was in culinary. So we do have the mise en place, the place for everything, and everything is placed. And I try to keep that motto in the studio. So I try to make sure that everything is labeled. I had a student that said, oh, my mom runs a daycare and she does that too. So the kids will have recognition of what things are. In the printmaking studio, I try to do the same thing because a lot of the students don't know what anything is and they're guessing. And I try to keep that guessing down so they know where it is. Even in my home studio, I say I'll put stuff in jars and know what it is, and later I don't know what it is. So I try to label everything at home too. Also, environmental health and safety is very happy that everything in our labs are labeled. So it does foster a better environment too, because everybody knows where things go back and what they are. And if it is, it helps me too. If it is empty, I can see that it's empty and go get another one or order another one. I'm going to touch a little bit on roller care. So the first thing is we're in New Mexico. We have, I think the humidity right now is 20%. So it's really dry here. Also, never use alcohol on your rollers because they are rubber and that you don't want to dry them out. The sun too, we keep the rollers in this goldenrod paper, which is kind of a pain to find, but we do have it. But any paper, if your lab does get sun, keep the rollers covered out of the sun because it will increase the longevity of them. On here too, I wanted to talk about for the idea of the students. This is something I brought on. We name all the rollers and I name the presses and I try to name everything so I know what the students are talking about if they're talking about something. And they get to make it, if the roller cover dies, they get to rename the roller, and I have a list. And on that list with the names of the roller is how big the rollers are and what the rollouts are. So when students are going to pick something, they have a better idea of, oh, I'm going to use the Holy Roller for this one because it actually fits the plate. And I write that on all the roller covers as well. They transfer it too, so it's easier to line up. And like I said before, when I do go and do additions with the prints, I'll try to do things with different rollers. So I know the rollers because I also have a small maintenance kit for the rollers as well. The handles get loose, and there's it seems that we have both some Renaissance rollers and the Talk Edge rollers, but they all use the little stops in there too. And they used to use copper, which the copper wears out. Now we punch out HDPE, and that we put that, there's little HDPE plugs that we put in there that keeps the grips from slipping on that as well. I've done a lot of roller maintenance over time too. In this too, like Jordan and Shaun were talking about, I have rubber stops for the beds because the bed stoppers, the catches, ours don't really have catches, but they are catches at the end. They're bolted to the wooden beds. But that rubber was gone when I started here. So every time they would press it to one side or the other, the press beds would pushing, and eventually those roller stops were going to get loose. So I went on eBay and found some rubber stops that were close to what they used to have because they don't really make those mushroom ones anymore. And I put those in there. This is something tough, and I'll talk about it real quick, but it was a big part. It's been a big part of my job. It's really the switch from graphic chemicals. Graphic chemicals just kind of died off for most things too. And a couple of the hardest things were for us to find or source was this Cinefelder's crayon ink. Luckily here in Albuquerque, we are partnered with Tamarind Institute, and they're right across the street. And Brandon Gunn from Tamarind Institute, the director of education, actually went to Cranfield in the UK and helped develop a new roll-up ink or a crayon black, a non-drying ink. And it's not the best yet, but it's definitely up there. The other hard things were ball ground, which Brandon Gunn also took over Trilobite. And so he's making ball ground for us as well. So we've been getting the ball ground. And Takich has been working with a company to make a liquid ground that we've been using. We've been testing it a little bit as well. We have found that liquid ground, I tested it here in Albuquerque, which is hot and dry. And some people were having some problems with it in colder weather. I guess it was cracking on them a little bit. So they threw it on the hot plate and it wasn't chipping anymore. So they're working on some formulas with that company now too to make some better ones. This was really tough too because I didn't do well with them. I sent them, I ordered some stuff and they kept my money and I had to go through Bank of America to get it back. And then luckily for us, Brandon was already trying to test this ink with them too. So he brought some over for us so our litho students could do some rollout. Also, I've been 3D printing registration pins because it seems that Tack Edge was the only company making them because the company before wasn't making them. This file is real simple. It's just 2 cylinders on top of each other. And I've been using PTGE. That orange one on the far is like a 40% or 30% fill that the students are using on the etching presses for registration. So if they do happen to run it over with the roller, there won't be a dent in the drum like those nails and screws that they found. They'll just crush. I haven't had it happen yet, but in my safety, that's what it is. I've also been laser cutting these boxes for organization because for the most part, when I got here, everything was either in a cardboard box or some chintzy plastic that was breaking or breaking down from the solvents and trying to clean it. And the wood is much better. This is just the cheap blue-on plywood that I get, the 1/8 inch, and I've been laser cutting boxes for that too, and cutting things on there and labeling them so the students know what they're using and what they're getting. Yeah, these last couple I'm going to use are just some small hacks that I figured out as the lab manager, some workarounds, because I didn't figure people just wanted to talk about my management style the most. The next one is the Crayola Twistable. We were using the ones from Create-A-Color, but Dick Blick has bought all of those now, and they're like $10 each for a crayon holder. So the crayon twistables that I've been using for the students, they're about $1 each. I did test the crayon that's in there, and they work on litho plates if you're interested, but I haven't tried them on stones yet. But the Corns crayons will fit perfectly on those Crayola twistables, and you can just get those. I think I got those from Office Max. Something else that I built is our screen printing studio and our screen printing classes are the packs. They're the most popular because that's the gateway drug to printmaking, which I have figured out. But our studio barely fits 15 people, and we have 15 people classes and 2 of them. So we kind of spread out in all the studios. So what I did was I think I got these from Mr. Velasquez down in Boca Raton, Florida. So I took angle irons and just put the screen printing clamps on there, and basically almost any surface become a screen printing surface for our students. So we have a critique room that they just use the tables there, and then I have some boards that they just clamp them on. My problem with the boards is everybody wanted to use plywood or MDF, and when you put the screws in there and the students are pretty rough on them, those holes start to get wiggly, and the registration goes off. So with the angle iron, the steel, and I drilled the holes, and I used stainless steel screws. It might be over engineering for the win, yay! I think that so far this has been about a year, and I haven't had any problem with them too. And then the students can also mount them on 2x4s to screen print on some non-traditional surfaces. So I kind of sped through that to respect everybody's time. Is there any questions about any of that? And I can stop sharing now. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Adam. We do have some time for Q&A. Brittany, should I hit the ones in the chat that just got asked first?
That would be great.
I think this is to the Conrad brothers, but Ruben has a Charles brand press that squeaks on occasion during etching pressure, struggles a bit during these moments, but it makes it eventually. Is this a grease issue or something with the wear plate or another thing? Very loud screeching noise, apparently.
That's possible that is the warp plate. Sometimes when they what happens with those over time, if they don't ever get changed or flipped, they start to more or less expand, and then they aren't really fitting in the slots that they're supposed to be in underneath the bed. So it's possible that it's that. Without any more info, it might be a little tough for me to diagnose it. If you want to email either Shaun or me some like a video of it or something like that, I could take a look at it. But it is possible. The warp plates, when that happens, they can get loud, and sometimes they can once they pass the center point, they'll make a big like thud or bang almost. If they're really condensed in there more than they should be. So it's possible, but feel free to reach out.
One other thing to check too, if it's kind of like a screeching sound, like something is dragging almost. The brand press has little rollers that go on the sides. They're technically under the bed, but they ride on the rails. It's possible that one of those is just seized up. So as your bed is going through there, instead of the bed rolling on the roller is stuck and the bed is just going across it, like scraping on it. So you can pull the bed to either side and check to make sure that any of those are like moving freely. But yeah, that might help.
Another question about a press. We have an etching press that has a low spot, and they flipped the press bed, removed and flipped it, but now both sides have a low spot. And they're asking what the best way to correct that would be.
I didn't hear the first part of that. But one thing, the main thing is you should check both sides. So I don't know exactly what it's kind of complicated. So I don't know exactly if there's a low spot or if the bed itself is like curled or something. But yeah, it's I don't know. You'd have to, if you email me a couple pictures of it, I'd be able to kind of give you a little bit more info. But yeah, generally speaking, if it's a steel bed and it's warped, one side will be like dished down and then the opposite side will be dished up. And so if you flip it and then it'll flatten itself back out. But theoretically, both sides shouldn't have a low spot in it. Yeah, the main thing is just you got to measure both sides of it, and one side should have a high point and one side should have a low point.
Thank you, Shaun. We have a question asking Adam if you can pull up the image of the angle iron screen printing clamps again.
Adam, do you have any other info on those? Yeah, they are sick.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I just measured when I made those two. I bought, I mean, this was before all the shenanigans that are happening. I just bought, it was like $20 for one length of angle iron, and I cut them with a angle grinder, and I drilled the holes, and I went to True Value and got some stainless steel screws, and I think I bought 10 sets of those speedball screen print clamps, and then I went to I think I got those the C clamps from Harbor Freight or something like that, and I bought a bunch of those. Yeah, I made it real simple and low tech. Because I wanted it to be as simple as possible. And yeah, I think I kind of measured everything. I did what our engineer friends would do and kind of put it all together so everything fit. And underneath I did countersink. So the nut part is on top, and the bottom I got the countersink ones, so I could countersink it in so it would be flatter to the table. And yeah, those are probably one of the best things I've made in a while. I mean, besides a couple of prints, but.
We're going to go over a couple minutes here just to answer these last questions, but Emily has a question about Cranfield safe washings degrading their speedball brayers and making them sticky, saying that inks can't degrade synthetic rubber, but they're seeing an issue with it. Have y'all run into that problem?
I have run into just the speedball brayers get sticky from the ink. And honestly, I did use alcohol and it worked. But that's what I did too. I also saw somebody resurface the speedball ones with just some finer grit sandpaper. They kind of put it on a drill, and I watched them spin them and kind of sand off the sticky part. Those ones I have I haven't really used the crayon. We don't really use the safe wash inks at all. So I don't have much experience with those, but I have had the little speedball ones we use.
I am not a presenter, but right now, Janessa Lingard, she's a printmaker, but she imported a lot of German brayers, and they're in that kind of mid-range price point. So not necessarily as expensive as like a Takachura or Conrad brayer, but not as cheap as a speedball brayer. So I can put that in the chat as well as an alternative in a kind of like medium price range if you feel as if your studio could afford those.
I have also shared in the chat some affordable 3D printed ones made by a printmaker in our community. Next question is, there is a Griffin litho press at their studio, and every time they use it, the pressure increases when they lift the scraper bar. Have y'all run into that issue? And if so, how have y'all fixed it?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's an Adam question or an us question. I don't know if it's a press. I don't know if it's an actual press problem or if it's like a user error problem. Like I don't know if people aren't putting it back, or if it's something that's changing as they're using it, or if there's an actual problem itself with the press. You have any thoughts on that, Adam?
It depends on those Griffin ones have the yoke that kind of twist, and there's like a set screw in it. So the set screw might be missing, because I think I used a Griffin one up in Santa Fe, and it was like that. And he just had like a stainless steel set screw. So I don't know, maybe if it's missing the set screw, because I have some, actually one of the Takach ones is just, it's from 1976 or whatever. So I had to get a new set screw for it because the pressure was twisting every time they were slinging the yoke up.
Yeah, that could be.
And then, yeah, they say the little wheel that spins when you increase the pressure, it seems to be tightening as they pull the bar up.
Yeah, it's probably that's what I'm thinking. I mean, Shaun and Jordan are more engineers, but when I had that one before too, I think there's probably just a set screw missing, especially if it's been sitting around for 20 years. It's probably a part that's missing that you gotta, and it's full of grease and you can't see it.
Thank you, Adam. We have one last question in the chat, and it's for you, Adam, and it's, how do you deal with other instructors or professors using different systems than the ones that you've made for your shop?
That has become an issue a few times too, and I try to in the beginning of the semester, I try to communicate as much as possible. And when we do have adjuncts that come in, because we have a couple of adjuncts that teach, we have a list of what needs to be taught and what we're using. And if they do want to incorporate some things, I had some come down too that wanted to use some more non-toxic stuff, specifically the vegetable oil and Dawn mix, and I had to stop them on that one because it makes the roller swell is my problem. And if it's in your home studio, it's fine because you're on top of it and you can get them off quick enough. But it's, I'm dealing with a lot of 19 and 20-year-olds that aren't sure yet. So usually for me, that is communication and what's that word when you two collaborate, and it starts with a C too. What's the other one? Compromise.
Thank you all so much. This was a wealth of information. I'm sure that if anyone has any follow-up questions, that Adam and Jordan and Shaun are all on Instagram, and I'm sure they would appreciate any sort of follow-up information. And shameless self-promotion time. Early bird registration for the upcoming Printelligence conference is until May 15th. The conference is from October 7th to Saturday, October 10th. It's at LSU in Baton Rouge. There's a lot of amazing things lined up. It's going to be a great time. And our members exhibit is also open for registration, also ending May 15th. So that's a double whammy May 15th deadline for both the early bird conference registration fee, then it goes up and is regular price until September 7th when pre-registration closes. Thank you all so, so much. We will be uploading this to our YouTube channel in the next coming weeks. And I appreciate you all for spending your Friday with us.
Thank you all.
Buddy.